can stop anything, religion, as commonly apprehended, can stop just such chaffing talk as Renan's. It favors gravity, not pertness. It says, "Hush" to all vain chatter and smart wit. But if hostile to light irony, religion is equally hostile to heavy grumbling and complaint. The world appears tragic enough in some religions, and the tragedy is realized as purging, and a way of deliverance is held to exist. We shall see enough of the religious melancholy in a future lecture, but melancholy, according to our ordinary use of language, forfeits all title to be called religious when, in Marcus Aurelius's racy words, the sufferer simply lies kicking and screaming after the fashion of a sacrificed pig. The mood of a Schopenhauer or a Nietzsche, and in a less degree one may sometimes say the same of our own sad Carlyle, though often an ennobling sadness, is almost as often only peevishness running away with the bit between its teeth. The sallies of the two German authors remind one, half the time, of the sick shriekings of two dying rats. They lack the purgatorial note which religious sadness gives forth. There must be something solemn, serious, and tender about any attitude which we denominate religious. If glad, it must not grin or snicker. If sad, it must not scream or curse. It is precisely as being solemn experiences that I wish to interest you in religious experiences. So I propose, arbitrarily again, if you please, to narrow our definition once more by saying that the word divine, as employed therein, shall mean for us not merely the primal and enveloping and real, for that meaning, if taken without restriction, might well prove too broad. The divine shall mean for us only such a primal reality as the individual feels impelled to respond to solemnly and gravely, and neither by a curse nor a jest. But solemnity and gravity and all such emotional attributes admit of various shades, and do what we will with our defining, the truth must at last be confronted that we are dealing with a field of experience where there is not a single conception that can be sharply drawn. The pretension, under such conditions, to be rigorously scientific or exact in our terms, would only stamp us as lacking in understanding of our task. Things are more or less divine, states of mind are more or less religious, reactions are more or less total, but the boundaries are always misty, and it is everywhere a question of amount and degree. Nevertheless, at their extreme of development, there can never be any question as to what experiences are religious. The divinity of the object and the solemnity of the reaction are too well marked for doubt. Hesitation as to whether a state of mind is religious or irreligious or moral or philosophical is only likely to arise when the state of mind is weakly characterized. But in that case, it will be hardly worthy of our study at all. With states that can only by courtesy be called religious, we need have nothing to do, our only profitable business being with what nobody can possibly feel tempted to call anything else. I said in my former lecture that we learn most about a thing when we view it under a microscope, as it were, or in its more exaggerated form. This is as true of religious phenomena as of any other kind of fact. The only cases likely to be profitable enough to repay our attention will therefore be cases where the religious spirit is unmistakable and extreme. Its fainter manifestations we may tranquilly pass by. Here, for example, is the total reaction upon life of Frederick Locker Lampson, whose autobiography entitled Confidences proves him to have been a most amiable man. Quote, "I am so far resigned to my lot that I feel small pain at the thought of having to part from what has been called the pleasant habit of existence, the sweet fable of life. I would not care to live my wasted life over again and so prolong my span. Strange to say, I have but little wish to be younger. I submit with a chill at my heart. I humbly submit because it is the divine will and my appointed destiny. I dread the increase of infirmities that will make me a burden to those around me, those dear to me. No, let it slip away as quietly and comfortably as I can. Let the end come, if peace come with it. I do not know that there is a great deal to be said for this world, or sojourn here upon it, but it has pleased God so to place us, and it must please me also. I ask you, what is human life? Is not it a maimed happiness? Care and weariness, weariness and care, with the baseless expectation, the strange cozenage of a brighter tomorrow. At best, it is but a froward child that must be played with and humored to keep it quiet till it falls asleep, and then the care is over." Close quote. This is a complex, a tender, a submissive, and a graceful state of mind. For myself, I should have no objection to calling it, on the whole, a religious state of mind, although I dare say that to many of you it may seem too listless and half-hearted to merit so good a name. But what matters in the end, whether we call such a state of mind religious or not? It is too insignificant for our instruction in any case, and its very possessor wrote it down in terms which he would not have used unless he had been thinking of more energetically religious moods in others, with which he found himself unable to compete. It is with these more energetic states that our sole business lies, and we can perfectly well afford to let the minor notes and the uncertain border go. It was the extremer cases that I had in mind a little while ago, when I said that personal religion, even without theology or ritual, would prove to embody some elements that morality, pure and simple, does not contain. You may remember that I promised shortly to point out what those elements were. In a general way, I can now say what I had in mind. "I accept the universe" is reported to have been a favorite utterance of our New England transcendentalist Margaret Fuller, and when someone repeated this phrase to Thomas Carlyle, his sardonic comment is said to have been, "Gad, she'd better." At bottom, the whole concern of both morality and religion is with the manner of our acceptance of the universe. Do we accept it only in part and grudgingly, or heartily and altogether? Shall our protests against certain things in it be radical and unforgiving? Or shall we think that, even with evil, there are ways of living that must lead to good? If we accept the whole, shall we do so as if stunned into submission, as Carlyle would have us, "Gad, we'd better," or shall we do so with enthusiastic assent? Morality, pure and simple, accepts the law of the whole which it finds reigning, so far as to acknowledge and obey it, but it may obey it with the heaviest and coldest heart, and never cease to feel it as a yoke. But for religion, in its strong and fully developed manifestations, the service of the highest is never felt as a yoke. Dull submission is left far behind, and a mood of welcome, which may fill any place on the scale between cheerful serenity and enthusiastic gladness, has taken its place. It makes a tremendous emotional and practical difference to one whether one accept the universe in the drab, discolored way of stoic resignation to necessity, or with the passionate happiness of Christian saints. The difference is as great as that between passivity and activity, as that between the defensive and the aggressive mood. Gradual as are the steps by which an individual may grow from one state into the other, many as are the intermediate stages which different individuals represent, yet when you place the typical extremes beside each other for comparison, you feel that two discontinuous psychological universes confront you, and that, in passing from one to the other, a critical point has been overcome. If we compare Stoic with Christian ejaculations, we see much more than a difference of doctrine. Rather is it a difference of emotional